Good morning and welcome to the Global Reviews webinar this Wednesday morning. My name is Rebecca Jennings and I'm a Principal Client Advisor here at Global Reviews. I've been at Global Reviews for some 5 years now, but I've spent many years in digital strategy and consumer experience at Forrester Research, the BBC and in consulting. It's my role today to talk you through some of the most recent research that we have conducted specifically within home insurance across the UK and Australia. So looking at a variety of brands that are benchmarked in our digital sales effectiveness study, how they are performing and how the industry could improve how it's serving consumers. Very quickly, the agenda for this morning, around 45 minutes. I'm going to touch very quickly on who we are in case you are new to Global Reviews. I'm also going to talk quickly through the digital sales effectiveness methodology for those of you who are not aware of where this data comes from. Then obviously I'm going to spend the bulk of the webinar talking about those home insurance industry results across the territories, looking at some of the key pains that come out of that research and some of the best practice that we see that could help brands improve how they serve consumers, some of the insights and opportunities. Hopefully there'll be a time for questions at the end. If not, my email will be at the end and I'm very happy to take questions following up from this. The webinar will also be recorded, so you are very welcome for a copy of it afterwards, and it should be put up on our YouTube and web pages in the next few days as well, if you wish to share it with colleagues. So very quickly, so I've told you who I am. I'm Rebecca Jennings. Global Reviews themselves have been in the consumer experience business for around 16 years. We are a leading data analysis and insights company that can really help you get under the hood of how your in-market consumers, potential customers, are researching brands in your markets, finding brands that they find interesting, making decisions in terms of both going to websites and then researching your products, and how they're going through the actual consideration and purchase processes, really with the aim of helping you increase conversion ultimately at the end of the day, improving customer experience at each of those key decision points across the journey. So that's really what I have here. Essentially, the digital sales effectiveness research, which we're going to talk about this morning, covers that consider and act phases here on the purchase funnel, if you like. We're going to be looking at how effectively websites in this industry engage consumers, help them match a product or service to their needs, consideration, and then actually go through the application process, go through the application to buy the insurance. You'll notice it also on this graph mentions the marketing effectiveness research. That is something we also do. Again, that is looking at in-market consumers, and that's a blank screen research process where they're asked to go off and find brands to research in this market, so we can understand how they actually do their research online. Where do they go? Which search terms do they use? Where do they go as a result of using those search terms? Which brands come in with preference from consumers but actually lose consumers, and vice versa? Who are you losing who are you gaining consumers from? So really understanding essentially what you might call the funnel at the beginning of the process. What we're going to talk about today, as I say, is the next step. Once consumers have got to the websites and they've started researching the insurance products for themselves, how do the websites in this market actually help consumers find the right product for their needs and help them to buy? This is a benchmark process, so you'll see as we go through, there are a number of brands in both markets analysed, and you'll see data on a total of around 25 brands as we go through. So very much as a customer of Global Reviews, when you sign up to see this research, you don't just see your own data, you will obviously see the data on your competitors too. It's very much about seeing how you sit in a benchmark group of competitors. So quickly, in terms of where does all this research come from? The DSE, the Digital Sales Effectiveness Research, is a mixture of insight from both consumers, in-market consumers, who are recruited to perform tasks on each site in the benchmark. It's a separate set of consumers for each site. So every site in the benchmark has consumers who are asked to actually go through and do specific things, find specific products, find a specific fact about a specific product, and go through the application process. We can track everything they do. There's a little applet downloaded onto their computers when they do this. We can track everything they do. So it means we get task success rates, how long it takes them to do things, which pages they go to, so we can see the click streams and heat maps. So we can see exactly how they perform when they're doing those tasks. We also ask them some attitudinal questions. So how easy did they find doing those tasks? What were the key pains they found? What were the problems? What could have been done better? And then there's an audit of features and functions. So what worked, what didn't, what were they expecting to see? Were they expecting to see a comparison table? Were they happy with the process? And out comes a number of industry standard statistics out of that. So system usability, for example, but also a wide range of other customer response and customer opinion and voice of customer. So you've got this range of data that comes from the consumers actually being asked to do things. You've then got, combined with that at every stage of the Consider and Act process, the best practice audit, which is a set of audit criteria that is determined and evaluated by Global Reviews experts ourselves. So that's around 350 individual yes-no criteria across the journey, and that is combined with the consumer attitude and behavior and audit data across the journey. So all the data you see as you go through, most of it is a mix of both the consumer insight and the consumer behavior with this best practice audit that is created bespoke for every industry that we do. It's a different set of criteria, obviously, for the home insurance, for car insurance, for banking, credit cards. We do the DSE across a wide variety of industries. So, as I say, a wide variety of financial services, particularly, also into energy, sports betting, retail, say credit cards, a wide variety of banking. So for each one of those industries, a different audit is created. So the data you're going to see comes from both consumers and this best practice audit. So it's getting both sides of the coin. It's looking at the best practice requirements, what should really be there to meet the best practice requirements for research and for supporting the application, but it's also looking at what customers actually think in real life of going through the process. They're in their own homes, on their own technology. It's as real life as this sort of thing can be. So that is really what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at some of the highlights, or possibly lowlights, if you like, of the digital sales effectiveness research that was conducted towards the end of last year in home insurance across the UK and Australia. So what we're going to look at is both the data, but also we're going to look at some of the insight that comes from that. So as a client of Global Reviews, you would get insight into the data, get access to the portal where all this data sits, but also sessions in which we help you understand what it is the data actually means. It's no good having lots of lovely data if you don't really understand what it means that suggests you should do. So we're going to talk about how we then turn that data into real actionable insight for our clients. So let's take the high-level macro view to start with. At the top of the results, if you like, all of that data, all of those something in the region of 450, 500 data points across the Consider and Act phases of the customer journey are all combined. It's all weighted, because not every one of those 450 pieces of data is exactly the same importance as everything else. And again, that's something we redo on a yearly basis to make sure we really are measuring what's important to customers. It's weighted and then it's put into the stages across the Consider and Act phases, and that breaks down to 6 different stages I'll show you in a moment. But the top of the tree, if you like, the top output is a score, the customer experience score, digital sales effectiveness customer experience score. As a very rough guide, just to sort of give you an idea, we would generally say a score of 55% meant that a brand was not meeting customer experience expectations really across the board. There are probably some key pains within there that are really causing problems and dropouts within the funnel. A score between 55 and 63 is okay. It's not outstanding. It's not. There's an awful lot of upsell that can be in there. There's a lot of headroom, obviously, in there, and there's probably a lot of sort of death by 1,000 cuts with that sort of score. May well be there's some huge drop-offs as well, but it's probably a lot of little things that are going wrong. At 64% and higher, that's an okay score. There again, there's a lot of headroom in that to increase it, but it means that on average the brand isn't doing too badly. The starting point is not too bad. Just to set expectations, we very rarely get scores above about 66, 67. We have a couple of sports betting sites that have hit sort of 68, 69 in mobile, because this research is also conducted over mobile devices. We've got some 71s across mobile sports betting sites, but generally speaking, that 64 is hard to get. So, having said that, let's see what the UK and Australian brands achieved in the last wave of this research towards the end of 2015. This research is done on a 6-monthly basis, so while at this point I would generally say actually this score is possibly the least interesting piece of the whole process. You obviously start with it, but actually Coles Insurance 58%. Okay, that's interesting. It means there's something's going right in there, but quite a lot going wrong. But actually, as a score on its own, it doesn't tell me what's going wrong. What's far more interesting is drilling down into it, into the depths of each stage, understanding what's really going wrong and what you can realistically do something about. There are going to be things that are short-term wins. There are going to be things that are long-term problems and things that need a bit more investment to cure. So what you really need to understand is get under the hood of that 58%. But having said that, it's always interesting to look at where you are against your competitors. As I said, this is a benchmark. The whole idea is to see how you perform, but against how everybody else in the industry is performing at each stage. It's also interesting to track this over time. As I say, this is running on a 6-monthly basis. So this is the kind of score that it's interesting to see over time, once you understand where you are and understand what you can do to improve, how you can realistically push that score up over time. And certainly we have seen increases of 6, 7, 8%, possibly more, if brands are doing really big redesigns between the 6-monthly processes. It's certainly achievable to make significant increases in a fairly short period of time if you really understand which levers you're supposed to be pulling. So a couple of things just to comment on this. As I say, having said this is probably the least interesting slide. 58% is our highest, although we've got a whole bunch on sort of 52 upwards. So the brands in this market pretty close clustered. We've got a slight tendency here for the Australian brands to be a little above the UK brands. I think some of that is because the FSA in the UK is very, very hot at the minute on any sort of comparison and any sort of promotion of a brand as being the best in the market. For example, most of the brands in the UK market are shying away a lot from doing any sort of comparison of themselves with anybody else in the market, and also lots of any sort of guided advice or guided insight into which product might suit you best. A lot of brands in the UK market are running away from that at the moment because their legal departments and compliance are making it very hard to get approval to do that. So that's what we're seeing here in the UK. Obviously, by my accent, you can tell I'm actually British. I work a lot with our British clients. So that, I think, is what lies behind some of the lag between the UK and the Australian market, although they're pretty close. So key thing I think to take away from this is that nobody's doing that well overall. Some averages here that are okay, but certainly not stellar. There's a lot of fairly easy low-hanging fruit to increase these scores, and it's interesting that the market is so close. As I said earlier, it really wouldn't take much for one of these brands concentrating to make an increase of 5, 6, 7, 8% over the next 6 months and really take a lead here because these scores are pretty close. So now we're going to try to drill that down a little bit further. As I said earlier, what's really interesting about this is actually when you start to get under the hood of what that number actually means and what it's made up of and what you can do something about. We saw consider and act earlier across our digital sales effectiveness. Those again break down further into 6 steps, and these break down even further into tasks and consumer opinions and data from the audit. The consider phase is really looking at the initial engagement to start with. When people come to the site, do they trust it? Do they think, oh yes, it looks like it might have something that's interesting for me? Would I want to go further? Do I feel like I trust the brand? Introducing options is very much around, well, what have you got? Don't understand what you've got to offer me. Can I just really quickly understand what the products are? What's the difference between these products? Evaluating options, or introducing options, is also getting about getting a quote. Evaluating options is about, well, actually, okay, I understand maybe what your products are about, but what is it that you've got that actually suits my needs specifically? I've got a specific issue. I've got a home that's slightly different. I've got a flat roof, or I've got issues with outbuildings, or something that's slightly different, something that's slightly worrying me. Can I understand that you have a product that suits my specific needs? And that is most important for consumers. Even those that have fairly simple requirements, they need to come away from it feeling that their specific needs are met by the product that you're trying to sell them. They're not just another number in a list. They're not another face on a shelf. It's just, it really meets their needs. Then facilitating decisions is that piece where people have got a quote and they're thinking, oh, that looks great. I like the brand, but why am I choosing you? I've got 3 or 4 quotes here. They all look the same. They all seem to suit my needs. What is it about you that makes me go with you as a brand? Can I contact you if I've got a question that's still outstanding? Are you going to be there if I have a claim? Do I really think that you're the right brand for me? Then into channel selection. Should I do this online? Is it easy? Is it quick? What are my other choices to purchase? And then application form, going through the form itself to actually go through the process. So those are stages that we look at. So this is where we start to get into seeing some of the differences across each of those stages and where those scores differ, and why that overall top line score can hide a lot of things. So this is the industry averages across those stages, the red being the British scores and the blue being the Australian. And you can see quite clearly here a little bit of a pattern where you're getting some industry pain. It's interesting because a lot of the industries that we look at, certainly in financial services, exhibit this sort of curve. You will find a lot of the industries that we look at do badly around the same points. So you can see the key pain areas here bringing down the scores. Evaluating options, so this idea that do you have a product that suits my needs? The industry is generally pretty bad at that. Facilitating decisions, so why am I choosing you? Pretty much all the industries we look at are poor at this. Are really shouting about their own value. Channel selections are pretty poor. Again, most people online just go, oh yes, seems to be assumption that yes, everybody will carry on online and we all trust it and it's all great. And we don't need to worry about telling you how long it's going to take or about privacy and security because you all understand that, and that's actually not the case. All of these things are really, really important. And the application form themselves, again, most industries we look at, they perform pretty well. People really put the investment into the application form, but forget the process that leads up to that. So this is the averages that we're looking at. And what generally happens here is somebody says possibly, oh, well, that's because the industry, it's really hard to do that in my industry, so nobody's going to score very well. And actually, that's not necessarily the case. If we now look at some of the high scores that we're seeing each of those steps, there are certainly some areas where the high is still pretty low, but certainly it shows in many of these cases that good scores, or not terrible ones certainly, are entirely achievable. And actually, higher scores in this are certainly achievable when you start drilling down into what that score is made up of and what some of the things that you could change are about. So you can start to see evaluating options. Coles actually reaches a score of 80%. It's certainly not impossible to show consumers that you've got a product that suits their specific needs. You've got introducing options up at 70% for more than. So as we go through, we'll look at the scores for some of these stages, and we'll look at some of the best practice. We'll look at some of what these other companies are doing that is making their scores high. What's also interesting is we'll go through, we'll also look at some best practice, and what we do on a client basis is look at best practice from outside the industry as well. It may be the case that nobody in the industry is actually doing pretty well. So for example here, facilitating decisions at 54 still isn't that high. So we can probably find some great examples perhaps from another industry or another territory that show some examples of how the home insurance industry can improve. So while we're looking at best practice from within the industry, sometimes it's more enlightening to look at something from out with the industry. And that's where the expertise comes in, and that's where the fact that we are running this across many, many industries every year really means that we have a good understanding of what are the achievable scores at each step and what are the good brands to look at. So let's take a step down. We've done the macro view, the top line scores. We've seen some of the averages at each step. Let's take now a step down into looking at some of the specific scores across the consider phase. As I said earlier, these are all broken down into further steps for your own site, but also for each competitor. So we'll see the range of statistics as we go through. So initial engagement is very much about meeting expectations, building trust, as we talked about earlier, and then moving through what have you got, does it suit my needs, can I make comparisons, can I contact you, and why choose you. So we're going to look a little bit to start with about introducing options. So this is the first stage at which consumers are looking at what you've got in terms of product and pricing. So the first time they've sort of gone in and really tried to understand what it is that you've got. This piece in the study looks at two things. It looks at both, can they find your product range, and can they also then get a quote and understand the quote? Because we find that, very interestingly, around half of consumers want to get a quote, then choose a cover, and around half want to look at the cover and then get a quote. Slightly different in the UK and Australia. Australians slightly more likely to want to do the options first, then get a quote, and the UK flips the other way. But on average, around half of consumers want to go one way and half want to go another. So it's really important that you cater for both journeys, that you cater for the consumers who want to go and understand the product, what it is you've got, and then they want to go and get the quote, or also deal with those consumers who want to go straight in and say, well, how much does it cost? Right, now I'm going to make sure, sounds right, sounds kind of achievable, let's have a look at the product and really make sure it does suit my needs. So we've got to cater for both journeys. As we saw earlier, industry average for this piece isn't that bad, 61, 63. This is a prime example of what happens. It's interesting when we start to delve a little bit further under that, because it's very obvious very quickly that actually there is a big industry pain here with establishing the competitiveness of this quote. So you've got to assume, or got to imagine, you've got what 50% of consumers have come in, they've immediately gone into the quote process, and that is their sort of first decision point. They're looking at the quote going, okay, that's how much that is, it's kind of interesting. But why are they then making the decision to even spend any more time looking at the product? What is it the quote's doing to establish that it is competitive, that it is worth paying? And again, on the flip side, you've got the other 50% of consumers who've looked at the product. They've gone, oh, that's interesting. They've now come into the quote. Maybe they're thinking, oh, it looks a bit expensive, or I've got 3 or 4 quotes that look very similar. And it's a really important place in the journey where it's absolutely vital to establish that the quote is competitive within the market for what you're providing. And people can really understand that they're getting what they want out of that price. And as we saw earlier, the industry has an issue with this. A lot of the brands we look at really don't do that. It's a very functional piece of calculation at this point. So this is Barclays, a very big brand, obviously in the UK, and obviously many other territories as well, but this is the UK snapshot. See, look, you've got the home insurance piece here. You've done some simple assumptions. It's giving you a quote. There's no overview of my user information. There's no check that I've put in the right postcode, that I've put in the right information. Did I tick the box that said it was made of brick? Did I actually put in the right rebuild value or right number of bedrooms? Because I suddenly thought, actually, that's very expensive. Maybe I did something wrong. If I think I've done something wrong, I've got to go back to bidding and start again. Am I going to bother? Maybe not. There's no encouragement to buy. There's a cover premium. There's no clear call to action. There's an add to this cover. But what does that mean? Does it mean buy? Does that mean buy? Does that mean go to the next step? What on earth does that mean? There's no clear call to action here. There's no promotion of the cover features. What am I getting from this? I've got information about sum insured, buildings cover. What does that actually mean? The only links to this are small links at the bottom right hand side to PDFs which people simply aren't going to open. There's no incentives, no upsells, no options, or very few options. There's no way to amend the quote from here other than playing with the excess. So really, as a consumer, I'm looking at this product going, well, I've got no idea what I'm getting for this money. It's very difficult to play with it. It's very difficult to go back and check the information that I inputted. So actually, it's not leading me to take that next step to actually go buy, or indeed to even think about it seriously as a offer, because I really can't be sure that it's what I want. The opportunities here really are to start thinking about making the quote as competitive as possible. So things like adding reasons to buy. You've got reasons to choose Coles Comprehensive Insurance here, so including a discount for buying online, little reminders about what it is you're getting, so cover for damage to your car, including accidental damage to storm, fire, flood, etc. Given the weather we're having at the moment, that's extremely valid. Cover for damage to your car in storms and fires and floods, one would have thought. Hassle-free claim, so little reminders of why you would carry on, that you're making the right decision. But then also messaging for price-conscious consumers. Price beat guarantee. You're still not saving on your current insurer? Well, a couple more questions and we can guarantee you will. And again, here you've got that price guarantee, but you can see here you've also got the information that I've input. So I can just check that, yes, I did say how old I was. I did say I wanted comprehensive insurance. So I can be another step more convinced this is the right thing. I've told you the right things. I've got the right price. You can see here also this is car insurance. Again, as I said earlier, sometimes it's interesting to look slightly outside of the market that we're specifically benchmarking, because all of this stuff is just as relevant for home insurance. You could replicate this really easily for home insurance. So it's exactly the same points: reasons to buy, messaging for price sensitive consumers. Other examples here. This is from Budget Direct, and this is specifically looking at contents insurance. So again, policy highlights to reinforce choice. So new for old, 24/7 claim lines, 21-day money-back guarantee, little reminders of why this is a good thing to do. External validation, a Money magazine winner. So it's not just Budget Direct going, yay, yay, we're great, obviously, which you'd expect them to do. It's also external validation of a magazine saying, yeah, absolutely, this is the insurer of the year. So external confidence about the brand. Continue online to lock in your 20% discount. Call to action. Why would I carry on? Oh gosh, I'll get 20% discount. Let's carry on with a link to a phone. Easy to change the excess. Nice slider. Does it automatically? So a lot of encouragement here. And again, what we were saying here, this is about establishing the competitiveness of this quote. So this is the price. It's not just the price. This is why you would buy from us. You're getting a discount. This is information about the policy. Here you've got where the policy would start. You've got some of the information about the property that I inputted. Again, I was saying this earlier. I can be sure that I've actually put in the right amount of information without bouncing back or starting the quote again, which is incredibly frustrating. What I've said about me and when the quote's valid for. So everything I need to know to really understand what it is I'm being offered here, understand that it's right, and understand that the price is a good one, that it's discounted. So everything they can do, they're encouraging you to carry on with that process. So that's for introducing options, and to say that one of the key pains there in this industry is establishing that competitiveness of the quote. So now let's take the next step, which is about evaluating options. So now we're going to be thinking about, well, actually, as a consumer, am I sure that the product I'm getting is exactly the right one that suits my needs? And this is, as you can see, generally quite a low scoring round. I sound like a quiz host, show host. A low scoring element, particularly in the UK. We do this particularly badly here in the UK. And this is very much about helping consumers understand the finer print of the policies. They're obviously tend to be very long, a lot of information. So it's about how can you best present the detail of a policy and make sure consumers really understand that they are covered for the things that worry them, be it their engagement ring outside the home, be it a property with a flat roof, be it a student's belongings, whatever it is that worries them particularly. What is it that you've got that suits those specific needs? And again, this is something that most of the brands across the UK and Australia do badly. You'll notice not every brand here has a score. If it's not got a score, it means that it doesn't have comparative products. It might just have one type of home insurance, for example, in which case it's much harder to figure out a comparison. Consumers aren't going to worry about comparing the different types of coverage. But most of the brands in the benchmark offer more than one type of contents or buildings insurance. So it's very important that consumers understand, for example, what the difference in your basic and your premium product is. What are they paying extra for? Why are they bothering? And say this is something that most of the brands do very poorly. For example, this is More Than in the UK. You look at how they lay out the information, the detail about their buildings insurance. It's very text heavy. It's really difficult to scan. Your eyes are bouncing left, right through the paragraphs. There's a lot of imagery that serves no purpose. Some of the de facto is good. Having the de facto 5-star is obviously, again, external validation, so that bit's fine, but the snoozing lady, yeah, less helpful. So eyes are all over the page here. It's difficult to compare. It's hard to compare the different types of insurance. On the home page, the paragraph about builders insurance doesn't link to the more detailed page about builders insurance, so I've got to go find somewhere else and how to dig out to it. But then there's a sort of cartoon video that appears, but again with more paragraphs underneath, and some of that links to PDFs that telling people. So actually, as a consumer, it's really hard to these pages to find the specific information, to understand that it really covers what I want it to cover. And that is a general issue with all the brands in the survey. This is a representative brand. It's not actually More Than, but another representative brand in the study, where consumers are asked to go and find a specific coverage. Normally it's something like, can you go and find the coverage that covers keys being lost outside the home, for example, something that we all worry about, something that we would like to have covered because we'd like to place our locks if we lose our keys. As you can see, as a 10 on this representative brand, people really struggled. That clickstream at the bottom is all over the place. Everybody takes a different route. People go backwards and forwards. They trampoline. They pogo backwards and forwards around the site. It's a very time-consuming process. A lot of them have issues in finding where to start looking. They found the navigation hard to follow. It took a long time to find the information. It wasn't where I expected it to be. So a lot of navigation issues in trying to find this information. Where on earth is it? So it's very much about finding simple ways to differentiate and be sure that consumers come away thinking, I've got the right product that suits my needs. It might be as simple as a tick box comparator. This is Real Insurance. It's got 3 levels of insurance here: top cover, essential cover, and landlord's cover. A very simple little tick cross table makes it quick for consumers to understand the key features. And obviously you can't cover every single thing the policy features here, but certainly you can cover the top 20, which will probably cover most people's concerns. And then obviously the next piece we could talk about is talking to you, is picking up the phone and having a query if you've got something more complicated, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and how poor that obviously often is. But at this point it's about saying, well, what is the easy way of presenting this information so consumers can quickly understand the differences between migrate cover nationwide. Again, 2 levels of home insurance: our standard level, our highest level. Again, nice ticks and crosses, bit of colour here. Again, to make the options stand out. Tabs at the top, tabs work quite well in terms of getting consumers through an awful lot of data. Tabs are often very effective. Rather than having a huge table, you can tab through different elements of the table. So cover summary here, if you tab into a full list of what's covered, you then get a longer table with more crosses and ticks and optionals and values. So again, easy for consumers to immediately see, oh, that is covered, that isn't, that's important to me, that isn't. So covering, as I say, not every single thing people could possibly want it in, but you could probably cover pretty much the key things that people worry about in a quite a simple way. Calculators are also really interesting here, are really valuable for helping consumers make informed choices. We all get asked in home insurance at quotations, how much do you need to replace the contents of your house? That's a very, very difficult thing for most of us to get our head around. We usually have far more in our homes than we can possibly imagine it costing to replace. So having an easy to use calculator embedded within the process really helps consumers. So two approaches here. This is the AA. It's very simple, sort of low-key calculator. It's a bit more labor intensive. You actually have to sort of try and make the estimates yourself, but at least it's a start. The Confused.com calculator is actually much easier to use. You can just use little sliders to move the prices around. It adds up room by room, and you can go backwards and forwards, so it's easy to do. What's also good about this is at the end you've got a call to action. It's not just, yay, this is the amount of money that you've got in your house. There's actually a clear call to action to say, now you know how much coverage you need to go and get some quotes. So thinking about ease of use, thinking about linking it wherever it would be useful, even through the app form, because people will get into the application and go, oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I've got to come out of the application to go and do that calculator. No, linked it wherever it would be useful, and then finish with a call to action. Then the final phase we're going to look at this morning is the facilitating decisions. I just mentioned this. This is the why choose you. I've got a quote, I've got multiple quotes. I don't necessarily completely understand something about this product, so I need to call you. I need to know you'll be there if I really have a problem. I don't understand what the differences between all of you are. And this is pretty much universally through all the industries that we do. This is always scores badly. Brands in a lot of industries are, for some reason, very reticent to shout about how great they are. They are also often very reticent to make contact details particularly clear. And I have conversations with a lot of brands about this, and a lot of the time it's an edict from on high that says, no, you can't put phone numbers on anything, we don't want people to ring us up. And that's a slightly sort of interesting approach, but it's a kind of false dawn approach, because not having a phone number means you not stopping people trying to contact you. What you're doing is disappointing people if they have a problem. If your help and FAQ are amazing and you can solve every single question and every single problem, then great, but really, be honest, that's not the case, is it? So it's about understanding that consumers, almost as a hygiene factor, need these contact details, and finding ways to answer these questions can, as we see here, often be very frustratingly difficult for a consumer. Finding a phone number, finding opening hours, finding the right phone number that isn't going to be somebody trying to sell me something when I've got a problem, when I'm trying to claim, or when I'm trying to actually ask a question about a product and understand whether I actually want to buy from you. It's also one you see, interestingly, there are really wide differences in scores from here. You've got 12% from Nationwide up to 71%. Different approaches to being open to consumers talking to you, if you like. So you can see, say, from Nationwide and Tesco's, how can I contact them? It's very hard on both of these sites to find a specific, relevant contact details. And when I say specific and relevant, I mean something about credit cards. It clearly is said, if you've got a question about credit cards, please talk to us. Not sales, but if you've got issues, questions, can we help? It's very, very hard to find these across these sites. On the flip side, you look at Santander, a European, European Spanish bank. Every product page across their website will have this sort of layout at the bottom. It has help and support, so guides and demos and more information. There has direct link to contact us. It has a link to branch locators. It also has the frequently asked questions. It's really important to give consumers the opportunity to do this, because actually a lot of consumers are very happy to self-serve if, again, you've got the integrated contextual help. They don't particularly want to go off and dig around a separate help section over there, typing in queries and spending 20 minutes trying to find the right piece. But if you've got the contextual FAQs on this product page, excellent. You can solve their problem within 1 or 2 clicks. And you can see here, these are genuinely FAQs. So how do I make a claim? If I needed to talk to you, how would I do it? I've lost my documents, how to make a change to my policy, the things that people actually genuinely might want to do and ask. And then the next stage is about making sure you give consumers the opportunity to escalate their questions if they've got an issue. So phone numbers, relevant phone numbers with opening hours. You see here, fax, email, however people want to do it. You've got a quick differentiated link to make a claim. Again, reassurance. This works on many different levels. It's great for this stage, but it also works in the building trust at the beginning of the survey, beginning of the sales effectiveness process. Even as a potential consumer, if I think you're going to be easy to talk to, if I have a problem, that's a big tick in terms of my building trust in you. If I can't see a phone number, if I can't see any way of making a claim, I'm going to think, well, actually, why would I give you my money? Because actually, you're going to make it really difficult for me to get a claim, aren't you? So it works in many different levels, say phone numbers, opening hours. LV and Aviva actually have taken a very open approach to this across their sites and across all the products that they do. Their number of financial services products, both brands. But you will see this a lot of across a lot of their sites. You will see phone numbers, you will see phone numbers, opening hours, you will see things like reasons to choose LV for home insurance, the de facto piece, so why choose us, as well as that contact details. Within Aviva, you will see FAQ, we'll see links to specific help for that particular product. You'll see phone numbers with opening hours. So they really do have a policy of putting that stuff out there across the site. And actually, we've had them both as clients. They don't see a huge increase in phone calls to the site with people with silly little questions or questions that could be answered on the website. Actually, having a phone number doesn't mean people are just going to ring it for the sake of it. If they ring it, then they've got an issue. They've got a question that needs handling. And you'd much rather solve that problem than have them go away and say, oh, well, I can't buy from you because I don't understand that you suit my needs. So, in summary, hopefully, the last 45 minutes have shown you across the stages of the home insurance research that no one brand succeeds across these stages, either in the UK or Australia. We've got a fair amount of industry pain, but also a fair amount of brand-related pain. Averages are generally pretty low. But on the flip side, simple improvements can make a big difference to consumers and thus to this score. So highlighting the value of the quote, really what is it you're getting for your money. Comparison tables with calls to action, always remembering that calls to action and linking them at the right place and the right time. Clear relevant contact details with hours throughout, and contextual FAQ throughout. So hopefully that's been an interesting session this morning. Obviously, you've got a very high-level general industry overview with that 45 minutes, just a glimpse into what we do. If you were a client, obviously you'd get extensively more of this kind of session for each wave of the research that we conduct. You would get the opportunity to add 4 brands of your choice into these studies with deep dives into that data and access to historical data, portal access, so we have a portal with all the data in. But as I say, you'd also get insight activation workshops, which are a sort of this kind of version of this sort of webinar on steroids, where we would come in, look at your specific pains and really try and get under the hood of what the problems are and realistically suggest ways of improving. It's very much about actionable insight. It's not about giving you the data and going, yeah, that's all great data, go and play with it. It's about really trying to understand for your brand, what is it that we can really tweak to increase the score, but thus obviously increase conversions. So on that note, thank you very much for your attention this morning. I hope to say it's been interesting. My email is rebecca.jennings@globalreviews.com. That's rebecca.jennings@globalreviews.com. If you have any questions, please do let me know. This webinar has also been recorded, so you're very happy for you to have a copy of that. So please do contact us if there's anything else we can do for you. So thank you very much for your time. I will leave you to get on with your Wednesday mornings, and thank you very much, all of you, for your close attention this morning. Thank you.